Today we're going to talk about rules that affect mainly only jammers. So one of the important things to remember whenever you're considering your pack definition revolving around jammers is that jammers are never part of the pack. They are their own entity. They cannot be part of the pack if they are the active jammer. Um, so that means that jammers are allowed to hit each other anywhere on the track, but jammers cannot hit blockers anywhere on the track. So jammer on jammer action can happen anywhere in play. Jammer on blockers can only happen in the engagement zone, which is very important to remember as the jammer is pushing further and further away from the engagement zone. So if you call out of play, if the blocker stops and is no longer hitting and yields, but the jammer is actively still going at them and hitting them, that jammer can get an illegal contact for continuing to hit that player. So that is important to remember when you're working with your pack definition with jammers. Now, if we are just starting our jam, all the jammers start behind the jam line. Their feet are not allowed to touch it. It has to be behind the line. They can be anywhere behind it. They can go all the way to the front of the pivot line if they want, as long as they are behind the jam line. It is also important to remember that no matter how far back they start, they cannot accelerate until the whistle is blown. So if you have one that is coasting up off the apex to the line, that's fine as long as they are not pushing their feet when the jam is started. So on the first lap, so the jam whistle starts and we're on our first starting lap. That is the first lap or the initial lap. And we do not score any points that lap. The point of that lap is to try to gain lead. So you get lead jammer by being the first jammer out of the engagement zone after passing all players. So if a player is knocked out and it's a no pass, no penalty, that essentially means they were knocked out of play. The jammer did not pass them in play, so that does not count as a hit pass. They need to either go back or they are not able to get lead. So it has to be past all hips, because that is the center of the body. So it doesn't matter if they're leaning forward, we're going off their hips. Once the first jammer exits the pack and in the engagement zone, as soon as they pass, you give the double whistle to declare them lead. And then after you declare them lead, you will point at them with your right hand the whole time. You do not stop pointing at them. This is so that person knows they are lead and can stop at any time. Once the second jammer gets out of the engagement zone, if lead has already been awarded or they are not able to get lead for some reason, then their jam referee will swipe their hands back and forth that first lap, and then after that they don't wave their hands anymore. That is a way to show them that you are not lead. You did not earn the lead position. After that, you would only hold up points. The lead jammer is able to end the jam at any point that they want. So it's pretty common to get lead jam and you want essentially to not let the other team score. So even if you get 0, it's better for both jammers to get 0 than it is for you to get 2 and the other team to get 4. Every team's strategy is different though, so that's not always the case. That's just kind of the basics of strategy. Is it's better for no one to score than for the other team to get more. So they're allowed to tap their hips multiple times to end the jam. So 1 tap is not a call off. You need a minimum of 2. I do like wait till 2 or 3 because some will tap, wait, and then they'll tap again because they're waiting for like the other person to give up extra energy, waiting to hear from their coach. So do not call on 1 tap, you call on 2 or 3 taps. But they'll essentially just keep tapping until you call it. So you can lose your lead jammer status by removing the star. If you have lead and you take your star off yourself, then you have lost lead, and can, even if you do not pass it, you removed it, you no longer have lead. You can also lose lead by serving a penalty. So if a penalty is called on you and you leave to serve it, you've lost lead, you can no longer call it off. And in those cases, we would do the full 2-minute jams. Now, if the star is like knocked off due to like a hard hit, that does not count as the star being removed. That is the star being knocked off from gameplay, not purposefully removed. In which case they can return and get the star and put it back on and continue. And they would still have lead jammer. That being said, if your star is knocked off or dropped, you cannot collect points. Your star has to be on your head to collect points. So if you take it off and then pass 2-3 people, you don't get those 2 or 3 points. It has to be on your head to get points. Once lead is called, it cannot be awarded or given to the other team, even if it's lost. So say the white jammer got lead and immediately got sent to the box for a cut. Because it's already been awarded to the white jammer, the red jammer can't get it, even though they are leaving the pack after them. The only time that will be corrected is if it's really close and the wrong person was called. But generally speaking, once it's called, it's called. You do not award it to the other team for any reason unless there is a error in the call, and usually that is fixed extremely quickly. Every time the jammer passes a player on the other team's hips, so we go by the jammer's hips and the opposing team's hips, once they pass their hips, they collect that person's point. Again, we don't count leaning forward of the head, no arm. We go by your center mass, which is your hips in skating. So once you pass their hips, you collect their point. You can only collect a player's point once per circuit. So for each lap, you can only collect up to 4 points. You can potentially collect 0 if your star is off. You can collect 0 points, but you can get up to 4. If there's a player in the box serving a penalty, as soon as you pass the first set of hips, you get 2 points because you get your box point and your hips point. This does not count if it's just a player that's out of bounds. Even if they're reporting to the box, they have to be actively sitting. So if they're down, if they're out of bounds, you can't collect their point. You have to wait for them to be in play, and then you can pass them to get their point. Um, so if a blocker is knocked out and you pass them, and then they come back in behind you, you then get their point because they're behind you. You've already passed their hips. Um, but if a blocker is knocked out, you pass, get ran back, then they come in. You don't get that point until you pass them. So if a jammer is given a penalty between jams, so say the jam ends and then the officials decide to give a cut track for right there at the end of the jam, that jammer is going to serve as the jammer because that is what they were during gameplay. The only time that wouldn't be the case is if the jammer is the captain and is serving a captain's penalty for like the coach or something like that. In which case they would then be the blocker. But usually, whatever you were in the previous jam is what you are whenever you serve an in between penalty. So the star must be visible at all times. So what usually would happen is you'll take off the star. As long as you can still see it in their hand, we're good. They cannot put it in their jerseys. They can't put it in their pocket. Nothing like that. It has to be visible in some way. This keeps them from hiding it and trying to trick the other team. Even if it's like bunched up too much in their hand, if you can't see it in their hand, officials at any time can demand to see the star. And that is what essentially the jam ref would do. They would yell at the track and at their jammer, show the star. And if your jammer refuses to show the star, then it is an illegal procedure for not showing the star. This also counts for in the penalty box. They can take it off. They can, hold it and be ready to do a star pass once they return, but it still has to be visible in hand while they're in the box.